let's face it, a lot of times you're going to come to the gym and you might not feel 100%. This may be because of aches and pains, an injury, or just a lack of sleep or stress. But oftentimes there's many different ways that you can go about still getting your training in despite all of these things. You can go easier that day, or you can learn to work around aches, pains, or even injuries. So if you have some sort of injury, let's say to your upper body first. So if you have an injury there, you got a lot more things you can do. You can do lower body exercises like body weight squats, step ups, leg presses, things that don't require your upper body to work. Now you can even load up your squat if you have the tolerance for it, if the pain doesn't get exacerbated by holding like a weight for a goblet squat or the bar on your back for a back squat. Although, again, you might need to go lighter for this. So there's a lot of different things you can do with an upper body injury where you can work around it. And to take that a step further, you can also train the other arm or extremity that is not injured while that other side heals. Core exercises are still an option for you, such as sit-up variations, anti-rotations, crunches, and maybe even some planks, again, depending on your pain and what exactly is going on. So it's really got to be a case-by-case basis. So next up, if you have some sort of a lower body injury, picking exercises for the upper body and focusing on that for a while that injury heals. Things like presses, so bench presses, overhead presses, lat pull downs, chin-ups, arm work, shoulder work. Seated variations in particular can be good, so that way you're not leaning onto the good leg all the time or not experience any pain in that bad leg. So you can do seated variations of overhead presses, arm work, shoulder work, and of course, chest presses and bench presses. You're already laying down on the bench. You just might want to avoid driving with your legs if you know how to do that. That might exacerbate some of that pain that you're having. And again, core work here as well. Again, anything that's tolerable or doesn't cause any pain whatsoever. So again, you can do seated versions of anti-rotations, perhaps, crunches that don't really involve the legs very much. So there's a lot of different ways, as I said, that you can work around any injury. Now, what if your core or something in your core gets injured? What if you pull a muscle there, or you're having some back pain perhaps? Well, then again, you're going to have to try to find anything that's tolerable. So exercise variations where you're seated or your spine is supported so your core isn't going to engage as much. I've never really had much of a core injury or much back pain, a little bit, but I will say I've had a really sore core, and it is incredible just how much movement involves the core that you would never think of until you can actually feel it. So similarly with an injury, just reaching up for something overhead perhaps, or doing a squat, you might feel and experience some of that pain. So doing things again like maybe leg presses instead of squats, where you're not standing and your core doesn't have to engage to stabilize your spine. Seated exercises for the upper body, or maybe even just sticking to lying exercises to support your spine as much as possible and reduce that strain. So that is a third one that I don't have on the board that you'll want to consider as well. And then finally, PT exercises. So if you're smart, you see a physical therapist for any major injuries, for things like slight pulls and little strains, you can work around things and that will probably heal up relatively quickly. But as far as more major injuries go, like a rotator cuff tear or something along those lines, make sure you're doing your physical therapy exercises as prescribed by your physical therapist. Do them first, and then get on to some of the other exercises later on. So whether that be stretching or some lighter strengthening exercises, make sure to be doing those as much as you can so you're on track to healing. So that is another thing to consider. So there's endless variations of exercises that you can do, and you can do as much as you like, as long as you're not experiencing that pain or making the injury worse. So I hope this helps. Please feel free to comment below, like, share, and subscribe.